Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening in from today. Welcome to Onwards and Upwards, which is the show where you learn everything you need to know about being a healthcare professional living and working in the United States. I am your host, Deirdre O'Regan. I am the Senior Director of Recruitment at AMN International, and I am so happy to be on this show today. We have some exciting updates from the visa bulletin that came out this week that we are going to talk about. We have our expert panel of attorneys who will be on with us shortly. And just as a means of introducing myself to those of you who are not familiar, again, my name is Deirdre. I myself am an immigrant. I immigrated to the United States 24 years ago from Ireland. So I would love to see if we have anyone from Ireland listening in today. Please pop it in the chat, but not just from Ireland. We want to see where everybody is listening in from today. And so, as we all know, we celebrated St. Patrick's Day this week. And I don't know, coincidence or what, the visa bulletin came out on St. Patrick's Day, and we did see some significant movement, which we can talk about in a little bit. And in addition to that, we had an Irish lady win Best Actress Oscar this week. So that was very exciting. And we also had Ireland win some rugby thing. I don't know if it was the Six Nations or the Triple Crown, but it was important. Anyway, that's just a little bit about myself. And I look forward to getting all of your questions. Please continue to pop into the chat where you are calling in from. I see Abby from Ghana. I see Nestine from Cameroon. I saw someone from the UK, Israel. So we have representation from all over the globe. So we are very, very excited to get started today. Hello, Pauline from Nairobi. Continue to do that as we go through our show today. We will get to as many questions as we can. I know that there's probably a lot of questions surrounding pauses, suspensions, bans, which we will get to as many as we can, of course, today, and any other questions that you may have. So we have introduced a new segment for our show at the end of it. We will be doing what we have called What's on Your Mind. So as you know, our shows are either structured around the visa bulletin and our monthly immigration shows, or they're on a certain topic, but there may be something else on your mind that we don't address during those shows. And we want to make sure that we take some time at the end of each one to address as many of those as we can. So we will be starting that today at the tail end of our show, and we look forward to answering your questions. Okay, so without further ado, hi Josie from Kenya, hi Maan from Philippines. So without further ado, let's bring in our panel of experts today. So we have live from New York, it is Mr. Mike Hammond. And I feel like an SNL host now, so my life is made. So dream come true. And we also have Maria Schneider. So thank you both for joining us today. For those of you who are new to the show, let's take a couple of minutes just to do some brief introductions, and then we will get into the meat of what we are going to be talking about today. So I will start with live from NYC, Mr. Mike Hammond. If you would take a moment to introduce yourself and also let us know what fun thing you're doing in New York City today.
Thank you, Deirdre. My name is Mike Hammond. I'm an immigration attorney. I am based in Cincinnati, Ohio. I just happened to be in New York City yesterday and today, working out of our offices, and I am seeing Lady Gaga tonight at Madison Square Garden. So if I get picked out of the crowd to be like a backup singer or dancer or something, then you will not see me on these calls again, because I'm sure they'll keep me forever. But if not, I will be here again next week.
Oh my goodness, I'm a little jealous, but if you are picked out and they want to keep you, sounds like you've got a couple of hidden talents.
Oh, absolutely.
You need to share with us.
Very good.
Okay, well, I hope you have a wonderful time at Lady Gaga. Maria, over to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. So that's a hard act to follow. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. My office is actually not very far from Mike's when he's in his normal location. I've been with Musil and Hole to be 15 years this month, and I'm a partner here practicing employment-based immigration, of course. So happy to join everyone. And for those who celebrate, Eid Mubarak.
Thank you very much, Maria. Okay, so this week we saw the April visa bulletin was issued, and we saw some movement for rest of world to 8 months, right? So it was 8 months movement, and the Philippines stayed where it's at, but we're going to kind of get into that a little bit. So let's start with Mike. So when the visa bulletin came out on Tuesday and you saw that movement, was that expected? Were you surprised? I know that it was a pleasant surprise, but talk us through what you were expecting and if that was something that you did expect to happen on Tuesday.
Sure. So during last month's, and we had talked about this, Chris and I, on the show about 3 months ago, that once the travel ban went in effect with 39 countries being affected and then the pause on those countries in the U.S., those, I believe, represented something like 38% of immigrant visas being issued in a given year. So we expected some movement in both 485 processing as well as the visa bulletin, and we obviously got that the last 2 months. Personally, I expected further movement. I expected movement with the April bulletin, but I did not expect it to go all the way to current. So that was a happy surprise that it moved that far forward. Frankly, as long as the ban stays in place, and there's at this point in time no reason to think that it will not from this administration, then I expect we can continue to see either things staying current as well as other dates moving forward as well.
Thank you so much, Mike. And we have a lot of questions coming in pertaining to the pauses and the bans, and we'll get to that in a moment. Maria, let's ask for your take on the visa bulletin this week.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with everything Mike shared. I think we were expecting forward movement, but not quite that far. It's exciting to see. I know we've been getting a flurry of emails from nurses and employers alike who are excited to get things filed or, move to the next stage in the NVC process as quickly as possible. And I agree again with Mike that, as long as the ban stays in place, I think we'll expect to see continued forward movement. How much will be a surprise, I think, a little bit each month, but I think it'll continue to move ahead with the ban in place.
Thank you, Maria. So a lot of the questions that we're getting, Mike, is so the visa bulletin came out, and for those clinicians who are from let's start with the banned countries and they're now visa eligible, what happens?
So if the banned countries is the list of 39, let's make sure we're not confusing those with the list of 75 countries that are on a pause, because the answers are very different. But for the banned countries, if you are overseas, the priority date at this point in time is frankly irrelevant, because you cannot move forward. You can't attend an interview. You can't be processed. You are simply stuck where you're at. If you are in the U.S., we're taking the position that you can file your I-45. However, we do not expect you to be issued an EAD card, because the countries that are on the 39 ban also have a pause or a hold at the USCIS for benefits. That, however, has been applied inconsistently with students seeking EAD cards. Some have been getting it from the 39 countries, some have not. So when we file your 45, we're going to file and ask for an EAD. If it comes in, great, but we're not expecting it to, which means we're encouraging you and telling you need to stay on whatever current status you're on. So if you're on an F1 and you're working on, say, OPT or CPT, we're saying stay on your F1, stay on your CPT until you have an EAD card in hand. But in our opinion, we're taking the position that you can file your EAD or your 485 in spite of the ban.
Thank you very much, Mike. Maria, same question, but for those countries that are on a pause or a suspension, we know that the answer is going to be different. What happens in that situation?
Yeah, so for the 75 countries that are on what we're calling the public charge ban or pause, it's to be more correct, it is a pause. It says that in the language of the Department of State announcement. So there's sort of two things, right? If you're inside the U.S., this public charge pause just doesn't apply to you. The USCIS has not sort of picked it up or created any sort of mirrored or tandem pause. So you can continue to file your adjustment of status if you're current, and you should have no problem doing so. If you're overseas and you're on that 75 country list, you can absolutely pay your fee bills. You can submit your civil documents through the NVC process. In most cases, we're still advising those nurses or other clinicians to attend their interviews, because what we've heard from several of the embassies is that two things that are important. One, if you attend the interview and then some new public charge policy is created in the future, which is what we expect for a variety of reasons that we could go through if we'd like, that you will not likely need to re-interview. They'll just issue a 221G, which is sort of like a request for evidence or request for documents, and ask for whatever additional information is required, but you would not be required to reappear for a second interview. So for that reason, we are advising people to go. And then second thing to know is many of the embassies, particularly Kathmandu and Nepal, have been asking the nurses for a self-sufficiency plan or a family budget. It has a couple different names, but it's the same sort of idea, which this whole concept of a public charge is kind of a legal term, but the public charge rule says that if you're coming to the U.S., you should be able to sort of support yourself on the earnings you're going to have, or contributions from family members or something like that, but that you should not be taking public benefits provided by the government. So in our cases, that's a pretty easy standard to meet, in the sense that anyone that's coming here with an employer sponsor obviously has a guaranteed job. They'll have access to health insurance through their employer, most likely. And they'll have income to be able to support their family here in the U.S. and maybe even the family back home. That's, obviously the point of coming to the U.S. So when the embassy requests this family budget, we are preparing one for each nurse to take with him or her to the interview, kind of modeled after the example that Kathmandu provided, in the hopes, again, that when that pause lifts, they will not need to be re-interviewed, and maybe they won't even need to provide any additional documents if they've already supplied this budget and supporting evidence to the embassy.
Thank you so much, Maria. So lots of detail there. So if I were to summarize, what we're saying is, if you are on that list of 75 pause suspended, then still go to your interview, pay your fee bills, etc. But if you are on the 39 banned list, then that will be different. The recommendation is to not go to an interview, even if it is scheduled. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. I hope that helps everybody. I know that it's a little confusing, and we get this question on every immigration show, which is why we like to take a little bit of time to differentiate both. But if you have specific questions, we always recommend that you reach out to either your agency or your attorney in regards to your particular case. Okay, so lots and lots of questions coming in. We have one from Ashley. So Mike, Ashley's priority date is now current with the April visa bulletin, but she has not received her welcome letter for NVC. Her priority date is February 2024. What's going to happen in Ashley's case?
Well, if her priority date is now current in April, obviously, there's no action that can be taken right now, but I would be concerned. I'd want to make sure, is she already DQ'd? Does she have a visa screen in hand? And what consulate she's at? And then that would determine what action needs to be taken, if any. If you're at an embassy that you can self-select a interview date, then come April, then you can do that if you're DQ'd. If you're not, then I would worry about that. So I would reach out to your account manager or your attorney to see what action needs to be taken. But keep in mind, because your priority date's current April does not mean you're going to get an interview in April. Interviews are scheduled. It simply means you're eligible to now move forward to the next. So it would not surprise me if it takes another 3, 4, 5 months to actually get an interview in most places.
Thank you, Mike. So hopefully that helps, Ashley. And if you want to pop in some more information, we'll try and get back to you. But Maria, Joyce has asked an interesting question, and I'm sure that it's one that a lot of people have. So Joyce is of dual nationality. So she is one from a banned country and one from a paused country. Can she file with the paused country nationality?
So she would not file with a paused country nationality, but she could file with the banned country nationality. I'm sorry, the other way around. So she could say Nigerian and British. She could interview using her British passport and still enter the U.S., but she would not be able to travel on the Nigerian passport.
Okay, Joyce. Hope that answers your question. I know that there is a lot of questions surrounding the pauses, the bans, and now with the movement of the visa bulletin. So we're going to just switch lanes a little bit because I want to get to other questions, and we will certainly come back to all of those questions that we're getting. Some of them are very specific in nature, so our advice will be to consult your attorney or your account manager or your case specialist to make sure that you're getting the most accurate information, because everyone's situation and case is going to be different. But we'll get to as many as we can today. So Mike, there's a question coming in. Can I adjust my status from an H1B to an EB3 currently, and how does that work?
Well, the answer is yes, but you need an I-140 first. And one of the things to keep in mind is that if you're a registered nurse, and I'm assuming that's what this question is coming from, you're on a special H-1B visa. So that's a registered nurse where a bachelor's is required. And if you're, say, in an ICU unit or something, your hospital may need a prevailing wage determination that is different than what is used for overseas candidates. And so they may need a prevailing wage that matches your ICU bachelor's level position because you're on an H1. But assuming you have an I-140 like that matches, then yes, you can adjust off of an H-1B. It's very commonly done all the time. So I would reach out to your current employer, because if you're on H-1B, you're employed by someone here in the U.S., reach out to them and talk to them about next steps for you for a green card.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mike. Mike had mentioned F1 and student visas previously, but Janisha Maria is asking a question and is coming up regularly in the chat. If someone is in the US on a non-immigrant visa, like an F1 or an F2, and files for an EB3, how long do you think it will take to get the EAD and start working?
I think right now, unfortunately, we're seeing EADs take quite a bit of time. I'm not sure if Mike wants to weigh in as well with what his office is seeing, but most of them that we've submitted, putting aside any that are delayed because of the travel ban issues or anything like that, or the sort of USCIS version of the travel ban, the EADs are taking like 9 months to a year. So it might be quite some time, unfortunately, before the EAD would be issued.
Thank you, Maria. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say we're seeing the same thing, and writing an expedite request is pretty much as effective as me yelling out one of these windows right here. Please expedite my client's EAD, and it's the same effect. And I'm willing to do it. These windows open, so.
You've got a great view there, so it looks like
a terrace. Even I can walk out on a terrace.
It looks like you're right in the middle of all of the action, all the NYC action.
Yeah, I'm in Rockefeller, so yeah.
Oh wow, yeah. I hope it's not as cold as it was back in February, but pretty cold, chilly. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions that are going to be opinion based. Nobody has a crystal ball, and we don't know what's going to happen. But Mike, we're getting a question: how long do you think this pause, not the ban, the pause, will be in effect?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. First of all, and I think Maria alluded to this earlier today, is that we are all expecting some release of some standards or guidance about public charge. and new rules. And whether that's real new rules, something from the Department of State, or some regulatory thing is unknown, but at some point, some framework of new rules. Once they do that, then I think they'll simply be applying those new rules. And then to some degree, the pause will be lifted, because the reason for the pause will be implemented in, here's a new standard, here's a new criteria that must be met in order for you to come to the US. The timing on that is anyone's guess. This administration could put something out today because they may or may not choose to follow the regulatory pathway. It could sit for 6 months because they could be using this as a way to simply delay more immigration to the US. But I do believe that at some point there will be a pause. The fact that the consulates from those 75 countries are still scheduling and having interviews and are simply telling people either informally, hey, you just got to wait until we get more guidance, or some are actually issuing a 221G telling you it's officially on pause. But the fact that they're scheduling interviews gives me some idea that maybe they've been provided some information that the pause will not be long-term, whatever long-term means, because I don't think they'd be scheduling interviews and having interviews if they thought the pause was going to last a year. So I think that would be pointless. But I'm guessing.
Thank you very much, Mike. So we're getting a lot of questions around that, and a lot of questions around predictions of the May visa bulletin. So we'll get to that in a little bit. So Maria, a lot of questions about now with the movement of the visa bulletin that we saw this week for April. A lot of people are becoming visa eligible, but their I-140 petitions are still not approved. What happens at that stage?
Yeah, so as sort of a preamble to the answer, I will say there's some language on the USCIS website that says they essentially won't look at your I-140 until you're current, because there's such a backlog, and obviously until recently the retrogression was much deeper. So I think there's going to be a lot of people that find themselves in this situation. So I think then you have a couple of options. The first option would be to pay for premium processing to expedite your I-140 and get a decision faster. The premium processing fee, unfortunately, is increasing, or just recently increased, I should say, to $2,965. So it's not a cheap thing to do, but you do get a response from the USCIS, not necessarily an approval, but a response within 15 business days. Could be a request for additional evidence, but then, hopefully the case moves forward more quickly with that payment of the premium processing fee. The other option that you could do if you're inside the U.S. Would be to file your 485 referencing that pending I-140. You're allowed to do that. If you're current, you can file the 485 even if the I-140 is not yet approved. The only hesitation that I would have there is if the I-140 is denied for any reason, including government error or mistake, the I-485 would just be automatically denied because it's linked with the I-140. And of course, the USCIS doesn't refund any of your filing fees. So, you would just be left with basically nothing if that happened. So if that option is something that you want to consider, filing the 485 while the I-140 is still pending, I would highly recommend you consult with your employer, with your immigration attorney, and make sure that the I-140, looks good, is on firm feet, and that everybody's comfortable with this risk of moving forward, that there could be a denial, again, even if it was just by mistake or government error. So that's always an option, to go ahead and file the 485 while it's pending, or again, you could upgrade the I-140 to premium processing to try to get a decision more quickly on the I-140. Once you have that approval in hand, then go ahead and file the 485.
Thank you, Maria. And on average, what's the timeline for an I-140 approval without premium processing right now?
Several years, Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years.
Okay.
But as Maria says, that was an intentional. We're not going to process this because there's no reason, because you can't move forward anyway. Now that you can move forward, does that mean the USCIS is going to react to those and start processing those? I don't know. We haven't seen that yet, but that is certainly a possibility. And obviously, as Maria says, $3,000 is a lot of money, particularly if you're here in the U.S. and you're a new grad and you finish school and you've only been in your job 6 months. $3,000 is a lot to come up with in order to premium your I-140. So maybe there'll be some movement.
Okay, so the average timeline, we're looking at 2 years for an I-140 approval. So if it's outside that timeline, maybe a time to get a little concerned, but if it's inside that, then those are standard processing times for right now is what I'm hearing. Okay, so lots of questions surrounding that. So hopefully that helps. Mike, there's some questions, and I'm going to try and put it in just to one question and hopefully answer it for the majority of people who are asking this. So for the banned and the paused countries who have dependents who are close to aging out, in that scenario, if they, whatever scenario they are in, what happens in that case? Should they be prepared to travel without their dependents, or is there something in place that protects their dependents?
Well, I think generally, my general answer for any age out question is that the facts in your case are very unique and specific to you. Mm-hmm. And if you have a child that you think is going to age out, you need to alert your account manager, alert your attorney, and speak to them, because there are a lot of moving parts as to what days are added on, what's impacted by retrogression, what is not. Are you going to be protected with the banned country? Are they going to consider that you have frozen the time? Those are a lot of unknown questions, mm-hmm. Because there's no answers to those yet, because the ban's only been in effect since December. So reach out to your attorney, reach out to your account manager. But it is possible that if you're from a banned country or a paused country, that you will not have an answer right now. And that's a definitive answer. You may have, hey, here's what I think, but it may not be a very clear answer, because there's not a clear answer. Sorry.
Thank you, Mike. And no, that's very helpful, because I think that that's one of those examples where you should be consulting with either your attorney, your account manager, or your case specialist, because it is unique to your specific situation, and you want to make sure that you're getting the most up-to-date and accurate information on how you move forward. So thank you for that. I hope that answers all the questions that we are getting regarding that. Just talk to your attorney or your case specialist and make sure that you have the correct information on moving forward. So Maria, Emily is asking, what will happen to the dates once the visa pause is lifted? Do you see the dates retrogressing when people with earlier priority dates start getting processed?
Yes, I think unfortunately, if the ban was to lift, right, then there would be much more demand on those same visas, because, as we said before, those 39 countries that have the ban, not the pause, but the ban, they're not able to obtain an immigrant visa right now and come to the U.S. And that's the reason. I mean, it says in the notes to the visa bulletin that that's the reason why the dates have moved forward so quickly. And in fact, in the notes, it also mentioned something to the effect of, like, if the ban was to lift, that the dates would retrogress, so sort of be prepared for that. So yes, I think that would be the case. And I think the Department of State is kind of hoping that we're all, eyes wide open about that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Lots and lots of great questions, and lots of great answers from our panel of experts here. And hopefully you're getting great information that you can use in identifying what your next steps are going to be. So I know that we have some questions coming into the chat on job offers that have been rescinded. I will address those questions towards the end of the show. So hold your questions. I will absolutely be addressing them. But in the same line as that, there are some questions about if your job offer is rescinded, and this will be for Mike. Do you keep your priority date? And is the timeline for recapturing that priority date the same as the initial processing?
Okay, so you retain your priority date if an I-140 is approved and not withdrawn for 6 months. So you look at not the date your I-140 was filed, but the date your I-140 was approved. and if it's been approved for more than 6 months and not withdrawn, even if that employer now withdraws it, you still retain the priority date. A lot of hospital systems do not withdraw I-140s, so that is an advantage for a lot of individuals, even if they rescind offers. The only other reason an I-140 or a priority date would not be recaptured is if your prior petition was based upon fraud or misrepresentation. Generally, that does not occur in the healthcare space if your petitioner was a hospital directly. But those, other than that, you get to keep it. If you're trying to recapture a priority date, the processing time for an I-140 is no longer, as long as you have a copy of the I-140 approval notice. If you don't have a copy of the I-140 approval notice, then it can be problematic to recapture a date because you don't know for sure you were approved. You may have an email, you may have a receipt number, and you can show that a receipt number was approved, but if there's no name on it, there's no proof that you have in your hand that it was really approved. So in those cases, you generally want to premium the case. And unfortunately, likely that's going to be at your cost in order to try to get some answers. Some people will do a FOIA request, which is called a Freedom of Information Act request, before they file. However, the timing on those can vary a lot. We'll see some in 3-4 months, which is not bad, but we've got some that are, I don't know, pending 8-9 months. And most of the time people just go, well, I'm just go ahead and file and see what happens. So recapturing, if you have the approval notice, is easy. If you don't have it, it can be difficult.
Okay. So lots to unpackage there, but basically if you have your approval notice, it's going to be an easier process for you. More challenging if you do not. So if you are in that situation, make sure that you have your approval notice and speak to your attorney, your case manager, your account manager on how to obtain that if you can, if you do not have it in your possession. So if you have it in your possession, it's going to be an easier process for you. So Maria, Ike is asking, can you explain what 212F means from a partial ban? I think he means suspended or paused country.
212F is just the section of the law that our President Trump is citing to for his authority to create that ban. That it's a part of the law for simplicity's sake that says that the president has sort of broad discretionary authority to prevent individuals from entering the U.S. if he deems it necessary for like national security reasons or if it's in the interest of the United States. So it's not something specific to the nurse. It's just the sort of legal authority that this administration is pointing to create and implement the ban.
Thank you so much. Lots of technical terms. And, we just want to make sure that for anyone new here, that you understand what those terms are. But if you have any specific questions, please reach out to us directly. So Mike, we have a question here from Elaine. So Elaine's friend's priority date is already current and DQ'd on December 2023. However, due to the ongoing situation in the Middle East, Riyadh has stopped their processing. Is it advisable to transfer the case to the Philippines?
So what I have been asking people, the first question is, what are you personally doing? Are you staying there and working? Or are you going back to the Philippines and at what point in time? So that's the first question I'm asking, because that will, if they're for sure going back and they know they're leaving as soon as they can get a flight out, then the easy answer is let's transfer your case. If you are not sure what you're going to do, which I think might be a fair answer, then we can certainly transfer your case. It is not taking that long to transfer cases. However, we had someone just this last week that was able to be transferred, but they can't get a flight out to make their appointment. So we're not sure what, we hope the consulate will simply just reschedule them for when they do get there. But the consulates are not always very interested in the answer of, hey, we'll let you know when we're here and then you can schedule us. And that doesn't tend to go over well with them. So we're not exactly sure what's going to happen. We also don't know what's the scenario of, I transferred to the Philippines, now they're processing my case, and now the consulate has reopened and is now processing. Can I transfer back? we do not know what that situation would look like. So I think the safest answer is probably transfer, but that's not going to be the right answer for everyone. There are people who are going to stay and write it out and see. So I think it is an individual worth discussing with your attorney, with your account manager, and taking into consideration what your personal plans are.
Absolutely. And it's a very fluid situation. I know that that's something that we monitor daily, the embassies, the airports. So just keep us updated on where you are specifically. I know that there are some embassies that are rescheduling for the next month, and there are some that have not rescheduled yet. So please work with your attorney, work with your case specialist, your account manager on the most updated information. As I said, it changes daily. Airports are opening and closing all the time. But most importantly, stay safe, and we're all thinking of you. So Maria, you alluded to this before, but I'm going to ask the question again because it's been asked again. Do you think if the pause doesn't lift by September 30th, that all of the visas will be issued to the other countries who are not on the pause?
Well, so by law, the U.S. government does have to issue all the visas that are available, or they're supposed to. Obviously, sometimes they just sort of run out of time. But the goal is always to use up all the visas that are there. And that's part of the reason we have retrogression a little bit, is the way that the system works. But so, yes, I think the visas will be issued to the other countries that aren't banned, because those are the only ones that they can't be issued to. And will they be issued by October 1st? Yes, because there's a new group of visas each fiscal year. So the Department of State will try to use up all of the visas before the fiscal year ends. That's part of what they're forecasting when they move the date forward or backwards.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maria. Okay, so by law, they should use all of the visa numbers before the next fiscal year. So the thought is that, yes, they will be to those countries who are not on a pause or a ban, because the new fiscal year then starts a whole nother group of visas. So hopefully that answers your question. And I know we'll probably get more, but I think Maria was very, very succinct in her response there. So hopefully that helps you all. Mike, we have a question here, and we get this routinely. So you may have answered this many, many times on these shows, but we get new people all the time. So can you please elaborate about follow to join for family members? How does that work?
Yeah, so follow to join is a different answer if it's somebody in the U.S. versus someone overseas. If you're in the U.S. doing a 485, then follow to join is for spouses or children who are still overseas. And the way that process works is after your 485 is approved and you have a green card, then your family will go through the NVC process, fee bills, DQ'd, interview at the consulate, and then able to join you here in the U.S. with green cards. That process varies a lot by consulate, but often is a year and a half. If you are followed to join from overseas, then it can mean one of two things. A lot of times people simply use that term, in its common language, and you and the whole family went to the interview, you all got visa stamps, and you're coming in now, and your family's coming in 2 months later, once you've gotten a place and set up and all that stuff. Or maybe right now we're in March, you're just waiting till the children finish school, and once they finish school, then they'll come in and join you. And there's no legal process. You just want to pay attention to the visa stamp on their passport to make sure that they travel in before they expire the 6 month, normally 6 months, but check the date on the passport. If, however, they're not going to the interview with you, and so you're getting you're going to the interview, you're getting your visa stamp, you're coming into the U.S., and now they're going to follow to join. That's a process that does not go back through the NVC. Generally, the consulates can actually act on that case, and sometimes that's something you can do on your own. Other times, you're going to need an attorney to help you facilitate that. But so there's several different ways to make it work. Keep in mind, make sure you pay attention to aging out of children, because that can be a problem if you wait too long for them to join you. That you can, in a sense, prevent them from coming because you waited too long. So be careful.
Thank you so much, Mike. Very, very helpful. Maria, we're getting a follow-up question on one that we received earlier in the show. Why are applicants from a banned country being discouraged from attending interviews, and those from a paused country can still go to their interview? So can you, I know you already answered it, but a little more clarification around why they're being discouraged would be very helpful.
Sure. So most of the banned countries, that the 39 that have the ban on immigrant visas, we're not seeing a lot of interviews being scheduled for those countries because of the ban. If you do happen to get an interview notice, or maybe you had one, I know at least in like January, we had a bunch that were scheduled before the ban was issued. You can still attend the interview if you would like. It's probably something to discuss with your employer or your agency. Important things to keep in mind would be, first, that you may have to appear for a second interview. So just know that. Secondly, you're not going to be issued an immigrant visa at the interview. Even if you are interviewed now and the ban is still in place, you cannot be issued a visa. So just kind of emotionally and mentally preparing yourself for that. Most of the folks that we've dissuaded from attending that were on the banned country list, it's primarily just for reasons associated with cost. So if you don't live in the city where your interview is taking place, maybe you're in that country, but you don't live in Manila, or Manila's a bad example. You don't live in Lagos. You're going to have to buy a plane ticket. You're going to have to complete a medical exam, which costs money. You're going to have to provide a police clearance that costs money. If it costs money to acquire the other civil documents like certified copies. So if we know that the immigrant visa cannot be issued while the ban's in place, that's a lot of cost and a lot of time and energy to put in. When again, we know you're not going to get the visa right now. So for those reasons, primarily, we've instructed people or advised them to wait, cancel the interview if it was scheduled, or just not attend and wait for it to be rescheduled, so that they can really take advantage of that time. If you're going to invest the time and the money to go there and complete the medical and get the police clearance, let's make it worth the while so that you actually get the stamp once it's issued.
Absolutely. So great advice from a cost perspective. It is very expensive going through the immigration process. But Maria, is there a chance that they could be denied at the interview? And how does that affect them long term?
Sure. So, I think there's always a chance that they could be denied, right? It would be very case specific, so it's hard to say exactly why. I think most, and I think Mike mentioned this earlier, most of the ones that did go from our caseload in January or maybe even early February were just issued a 221G that simply said, like, your country is on a banned list. We can't issue you a stamp. In fact, we even had some that went before the ban was in place, but had a 221G for something else. Let's say they went in November, they got a 221G asking for some updated civil document. Then in January, they provided the updated civil document. They were issued a second 221G that said, we've got your updated civil document, but we can't issue you a visa because of the ban. So, there could be grounds for denial that wouldn't have anything to do with the travel ban, right? It might be something, person's background, but they wouldn't be denied based off the ban itself. They would just get a 221G that says, your case is sort of on hold until the ban is either lifted or some other resolution happens.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Maria. So the advice is, if you are scheduled for an interview, reschedule it to a later time. Your case specialist, your recruiter, your attorney can help you do that. So that is the advice that you are hearing today. If you are on the list of those 39 banned countries, that is the advice that we are giving you today. So kind of a back to basics question. Eunice, and this is for Mike. Eunice is asking, how many visas are available each fiscal year?
Well, first of all, let me add something onto Maria's. We had, not mine. I'm going to throw one of my other attorneys under the bus, but I'm not going to say who it is. But it's one of Maria's friends. But we've had at least 2 cases that went to an interview from a banned country who were denied for the ban. And we're not sure if the ban's lifted, if we're going to have to file a new I-140 and go back through the process again or not. So, but I think as a practical matter, as Maria mentioned, no one's getting interviews scheduled right now anyway from those banned countries. So it should be a moot point right now. Okay, so back to the question. It's a complicated formula, but we start with 140,000. There's a little bit of an overage each year based upon some weird formula that only Chris can explain. And maybe Maria too, but I certainly can't. So generally the number is 140,000. It's split up among the employment-based categories, first, second, third. There's some set-asides within the third for what are called other workers, where they have to have a certain number. And then there's also a limit on a per country limit, which is why the Philippines is not moving forward with the rest of the world right now. When we've seen movement for the rest of the world, we've not seen it from the Philippines. It didn't move at all. And it's because they expect to reach their country limit. So each of that, but the 140,000 again applies. It's not just the worker, it's the worker plus all family members. So you, your spouse, your 7 kids, there's 9 right there counted for out of that 140,000. So, but that's the general number. And as Maria mentioned earlier in the show, every October 1st, we get a new 140,000. What's sad is that anything not issued in the fiscal year before does not carry over into the next year. So we do lose those. So we play a use it or lose it system here with visa numbers. But 140,000 is kind of the base we start with.
Thank you so much. So 140,000, but it does include dependents. So hopefully that is very helpful for everybody who is listening in today. So we have got like 5 more minutes before we let these experts go about their day. And we've one specific question that I will ask Maria to answer, as he did submit it very early this morning. So I want to make sure that we get to his question. We have, I'm not sure if he was able to join today, so he sent it to us previously. But here in America on an H1B, and his I-140 is approved. Priority date is October of 2025, but he is a citizen of Iran. Any recommendations on how he may move forward?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we do have a few folks that kind of fall into this same, maybe not this exact same situation, but a similar one. So a couple of things. I know Mike had mentioned before, you could move ahead with a 485. I wouldn't expect it to be adjudicated, frankly, or at least, like Mike mentioned, the work permit probably would not be issued. So it'd be really critical that you maintain your H1B. The one thing I would add to that is for individuals that are on some of these banned lists, specifically the 39, not the 75, the 39 country list. We have filed some like extensions of status or changes of status, and Mike, definitely jump in if you're seeing something else. But we're getting a lot of requests for evidence investigating sort of the character of the person. So that's not necessarily relevant to the approvability of the visa, meaning like if the job meets the terms of the H1B and the person is qualified to do the job, but they're asking for sort of background evidence, if you will, that the person is not a threat or won't do harm to the United States. So in those instances, we're providing like letters from colleagues. One of them was a student visa case I was working on actually for an Iranian nurse, where we were able to get some letters from the school she attends, verifying that she was a good student. She's helps other students at the university. She studies well, all those kinds of things. We might also include like any type of background check or police clearance that you have just as a part of maybe your licensure process or your job application. So there's a variety of these types of documents that we would work very closely with the individual. It's going to be a case by case basis, but I guess the important thing to know would be even when you're filing an H-1B extension as an Iranian, or again, anyone on that list of countries, the 39 list, you're probably likely to receive one of these sort of good moral character RFEs. And so you should be kind of preparing that and, thinking of those types of documents even before the case is filed. And know that the processing time is going to be delayed because they're asking for this information and kind of slowly adjudicating the cases for folks from those countries.
Thank you, Maria. So great advice there. Work with your attorney or your contact and make sure that you are doing that process correctly. And we wish you the very, very best of luck. So Mike, we have a question for you. What will happen if a listener here has had been in the unfortunate event of a job offer being rescinded, but has an embassy interview? What happens in that scenario? And I will be addressing rescinded offers in a couple of moments here, but I did want to ask Mike's input on that. Casey is asking that question.
Yeah, well, first of all, if you have a rescinded job offer and you still get an interview for that case because you already made it to that point, in my opinion, you cannot attend the interview without a job offer from that same employer because you're going to be denied. What I would do is obviously the most obvious thing, and I'm sure it's harder than it looks or sounds, but is find a new employer. Have that new employer premium process your I-140. And then if you have an approved I-140 from a new employer, we have been sending people to the interviews based upon the old case. We've been sending them with a letter explaining that I was rescinded. Here is my release letter from that other employer telling me I'm rescinded and, they're releasing. And here is my new. The consulate does not have to honor that interview because it was based on the prior employer. However, we are finding that generally they are. If not, you've got to go back through the NVZ process again, pay new fee bills and every DQ again, all over again with the new employer. But we think it's worth going to the interview. We've probably done, 20 or so of these like this since fall. And so far, all of them have been accepted and honored, but we've heard some stories from other attorneys that from time to time, they'll see a consulate that will not honor someone. And there could be a individual reason that has nothing to do with that as to why they're not honoring it. But yeah, I get a new employer, get a new approval quickly. Obviously, we've talked about premium processing in this call several times. You can get an I-140 approved fairly quickly. So, you may have to go that route.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mike. And again, we will be talking about what that process looks like for the last few minutes of our show today. So I know there's been a lot of questions coming in. I am not ignoring the questions. We'll certainly be addressing them at the end of the show. So just one question for each of you to wrap us up today. And we ask this question all the time. So Maria, starting with you, what is your prediction for the May visa bulletin? And again, nobody knows, but we always get the question. So
yeah. Let me get out my crystal ball and
exactly
shake, right? Yeah. I mean, I think like we said before, as long as the bans remain in place, I think it will continue to move forward. Typically over the summer, we do see some retrogression because of the things that we were discussing before, like they're trying to use up that 140 that Mike was mentioning. And like he said, they don't roll over. So sometimes we see the dates at this time of year move forward anyway, because they're trying to use up everything they have. And then they'll kind of pull back over the summer. So let's see, EB3, rest of the world, right? We're in June of 24. I'll say we go to November of 24 and stay current on dates of filing.
Okay. Mike.
Well, I want to make an observation first, is that Chris was on the call last month and we had retrogression. Mm-hmm. This month, Maria's on the call and we are current in EB. So
noted.
Whatever that means, just take it. First of all, I think for the Philippines, I don't think we're going to get past the date for filing chart this year. which means we may get some slow movement off of August 1st, but we're not going to get significant movement like we are in the rest of the world. I would agree with Maria that the rest of the world for date for filing is going to stay current. Whether USCIS honors that next month is dependent on how many cases they get. I would see some forward movement on the June 1st. Maria said November 1st. Is that, Maria, what you said?
Yes,
November 1st?
yes.
Then I'm going to play the Price is Right rules, and I'm going to go November 2nd.
Oh.
Or maybe I'm going backwards. Maybe I'm doing the game wrong.
Okay.
But I think we'll get some movement again.
You can still win the game as long as you don't go over.
Oh, then I want to be October 31st.
There we go. Okay, so you heard it here first. Those are the predictions. We will be checking in next month to see who was right or who was closest. But again, there is just so many moving parts. This is so fluid right now. Things are changing daily, weekly. So we encourage you to tune in with us next month. We will have a new visa bulletin, and hopefully we'll have updates on everything else that's happening with pauses, suspensions, etc. So I do want to say thank you to Maria and Mike for joining us this morning. Thank you so much for all of the great advice, the great input. I know that our audience always gets a lot from tuning in to these shows every month. We appreciate your time. Mike, have a wonderful time in New York City this weekend, and we will talk to you next month. Thank you so very much indeed.
Thank you. Thanks, Deirdre.
Have a great weekend,
everyone.
Thank you. All right. So there was a lot of questions that we did not get to, but hopefully that information that Mike and Maria provided to you was helpful. Again, it is a very fluid situation right now. Lots happening, which is important then that you take the time to listen into these immigration shows, because I know I learn a lot each time that we speak to them, and I'm sure that you learn a lot too. So for the last few minutes of our show, I do want to talk briefly about some questions, concerns that have come through in the chat about rescinded offers. So here's our lovely what's on your mind. So the biggest thing that's on your mind right now, judging from the questions that are coming in, is what happens if you are in the unfortunate event that your job offer has been rescinded? What are your next steps? So first of all, let me just kind of paint a picture if I can. The job offer rescinds are a direct reflection of the current market that we are in. So when you were initially recruited, it was to a specific order to a client, and at that time, your skill set were needed, right? So they were needed to fill open positions. That may have been 2 years ago, it may have been 3 years ago. Things have changed in the market, and those job offer rescinds are a direct reflection of that. So here at AMN International, the great thing is that we have got both direct hire and staffing opportunities, and we would love to be able to work with you and get your next position. So the most important thing to focus on is what is the next best thing to do. While you process the offer rescind, it's very upsetting, right? And it may have cost you financially, may have cost you in time, and we recognize and understand that, but we are here to help you. We want to help you secure your next opportunity. And we have helped many, many nurses who were in the unfortunate situation that you may be in right now. So our advice is talk to us or your trusted partner and focus on the next best thing to do. There are other job opportunities that are available to you through AMN International, and we would be delighted and honored to help you secure your next position, with the goal of having the pause in between as minimal for you as possible. Our team of recruiters are on hand to help each and every one of you. So please, we put in the link here to apply. please use that link to apply. It is www.amnhealthcare.com/international. I say that again, amnhealthcare.com/international. So unfortunately, this is happening across the industry. So we are seeing it, and there are some, of course, that are with AMN International, and there are others that are not. But the most important thing is that you have a partner that you can trust to get you to the next step. So please reach out to us. We are happy to assist. Again, we have both direct hire and staffing opportunities available, and we would be happy to get you on an event if you qualify for one of our direct hire opportunities, or speak to one of our staffing recruiters and get you your next position there. We also do have a very exciting referral program for those of you who have priority dates. So if we can pull up that, refer a friend and earn up to $1,000. There are some conditions that apply there, but we are looking primarily for those clinicians who have a priority date. So that's a great opportunity for you. And again, if you are in the situation of having your offer rescinded, then please reach out to us. We want to help you find your next opportunity, and we have opportunities available for you. So let's talk about our upcoming shows that we are scheduled. So on April 3rd, we are going to be talking all about transportation. So why is this important? Here in the US, it is very important that you've got a plan in place as to how you're going to get around, right? So if you are placed in a large city, a more rural location, it's just as important to have a plan in place. And we're going to give you all of the information that you need in order to make sure that when you do arrive, that's not an extra thing that you have to worry about. On April 17th, we have our monthly immigration Q&A, which we just listened to. Hopefully we have a visa bulletin at that stage where we can give you the most updated information. And then on May 1st, it is Nurses Month. So we will be honoring our many Daisy Award winners and really looking forward to that show. In addition, we've got our AMN Academy shows that happen every Monday. So on the first and the third Monday, we focus on English preparation and NCLEX preparation. Okay, so make sure that you are tuning in there. And one word of thing, if you are not quite visa eligible yet, but close to, we want to make sure that you are ready when that happens. So you heard Maria and Mike say that their prediction was that it would move to November 1st for rest of world. And the Philippines may move a little bit, but not as significantly as rest of world, because of course they anticipate those visas being used. But if you have not set for your English exam yet, please make sure that you are scheduling that so that when you do become visa eligible, that's not another thing that you have to contend with. So please make sure that if you have not taken and passed, or you have not scheduled your English exam, please do so that when those dates continue to move, you are ready to go. So it has been a pleasure answering your questions, speaking to you. I hope that this was very helpful to you. Again, everything is fluid. Everything is continually moving. Our advice to you is reach out to your attorney, your recruiter, your case specialist, your trusted partner, whoever that is, to get the most accurate and up-to-date information pertaining to your specific case. And if you are in the unfortunate position of having your job offer rescinded, we are here to help you. We will guide you every step of the way. And the most important thing is that we will help facilitate your next job opportunity here in the US. So reach out to us today if you have not already, and we look forward to speaking with you. With that, I will allow you to go and enjoy your weekend. Thank you to everybody who attended today. If we did not get to your question, we will try and go in and answer as many as we can throughout the day. But until next time, onwards and upwards.